All right, the old girl is kind of dirty, but I thought I'd make a video on this. It seems like I got a lot of haters on the last one, and that's okay. And they say, well, you shouldn't make a video unless you know what you're talking about. Well, okay. So whatever, if people think they know everything, make those comments. I'd love to see them. But anyway, I'm going to tell you about my experience with my Ford, and I'm going to talk to you about some of the things that happened over the lifetime I've had it. And I'm going to go back through my credentials so that, we kind of get this out of the way. I was an ASE Master Auto Technician from late 80s to 93 when I was doing it as a job. Since then, I've maintained a fleet of vehicles of my own. And I have about 14 cars right now. Of those, I've had several diesels, I'm going to say something really good about the Ford engines back in the IDI years, the 7.3, and before that, what was it, the 6? I forget what the other engine size was. It's been so long since I've worked on one. They were actually really super bulletproof. I mean, they were so strong, they would just last forever if you just kept the oil change and could afford to buy the injector pump when it would go bad. And then when they came to the direct injection, it started to create a few more issues. And as they've gone on into the late years, 6.0, 6.4, pretty bad engine. And if you think it's good, you better really do some research on that one. And then the 6.7, which has some severe issues. A lot of guys have said, there's no issues with their 6.7. That's what I'm going to say to you, yet. One of my friends had a 6.7 real quick, and he had enough problems with it that he finally kept calling me about what to do with it. And I said, dude, just get yourself a Duramax. And since he did that, he's had no more problems towing. He drives all over the country with a 32-foot trailer, enclosed, heavy, and has no problems. In fact, the Duramax that he got had over 275,000 miles when he got it, and it was using for towing. He's put over 100,000 on it since then, and he's had little or no problems. Basically, just very small things like a light bulb going out or whatever. Nothing major with the engine or transmission at all. So this thing's really dirty because I'm not driving it right now. I'm not able to because California basically made it illegal. It's a bucket truck. This truck has been all over the state of California. I bought it, I think, with about 135,000 miles on it. And during that time, these are some of the issues that I've had with it. One of them, which is the piston's cracked. And I'm going to go over that real quick, why my theory is and why I think that they cracked because of the weight this thing pulls all the time. And maybe it's the year. I'm not sure exactly why. But it did crack 3 pistons, and it's never seen ether. It never blew any black smoke. So it wasn't overfueled. It didn't see ether ever. No starting fluid. Of course, I would never do that, knowing that. Since I was a mechanic for many years, I know about ether and diesel engines. It's been a couple of years since I actually rebuilt the engine on this. We went through 100% of it and used all original parts. None of the parts were used on this truck were any cheap aftermarket stuff. I went for the Mahle pistons right from Mahle, not from Ford. And I don't know if the ones that are replacement from Ford are the same as the ones from Mahle, because they're both Mahle pistons. But I'm going to tell you that the new pistons that I got, and if they were not ever having any issues, why would they update their casting? And that's what I want to tell you guys in the comments below that are saying they never have issues with their pistons going bad. Why would they update the new pistons and make way more meat? They had so much more that it wasn't even a comparison on, I don't have the new ones out. Obviously, they're in the engine. They updated a bunch of different things on them. You could see in the backside, you look at the backside of the piston, and it was way thicker material. I'm sure they were heavier. I didn't put them on a scale. But I could just tell that the castings were just completely different than the original ones, which this is the original, one of the original ones. I did have 3 that were cracked. One was cracked all the way through, and I had a hairline on 2 others. Now, a lot of people say that that was probably from ether. And when I got the truck, I said I had 135,000 miles on it. The piston's cracked at 186,000 miles. So you tell me your theories on that. Here's mine. I think it was because this truck pulls heavy weight all the time. It's 15,000 pounds. And it's just constantly, you know, and I drove it all over the state of California. So let's just say before I got it, for some reason, somebody put ether in it. And would it have lasted with a hairline crack in one of the pistons, 100, you know, what is that, 50,000 miles? And we're talking about driving up and down the Grapevine, California, all the way from Southern California, all the way to Northern California. Several times I've driven this truck all over the state of California, through the mountains, and having it not crack all the way through before that many miles. You know, it's possible, but I doubt that, you know, that theory doesn't make much sense to me. So now that that's out of the way, just wanted to make sure, you know, you guys don't think I'm a complete idiot, like some of you people have been saying in the other video. So I thought I'd make an updated one on this issue that I've had, these things, because it seems like some of the people didn't get through the whole video to watch some of the stuff on the other things that I've had. And, you know, this is just my opinion. Of course, everybody has entitled to their opinion, and there's a lot of other guys who, like Powerstroke help guy, he's really good, you know, but he's in the business of fixing these trucks, and you know, that's pretty good money you can make fixing problems with Fords. So to me, that's like, you know, you don't see a Duramax guy, you know, that does all Duramax stuff and has to do upgrades and bulletproofing to Duramax. They just pretty much are all the way out of the box. As long as you're not overpowering them, updating them, usually they're just fine. Unless for some reason, you know, you're doing that massive power up. You know, I wouldn't power up any of my diesel engines. I keep them pretty much stock. I think the engineers that made them kind of knew what they were doing mostly. And then of course, engineers sometimes make mistakes, and I believe they probably made a mistake on those pistons. And I'm not sure what years they ran into. It could have been a certain particular year where they were having issues and they updated it. But for some reason, they updated that piston. You guys can tell me why in the comments. Maybe you don't know why. That's okay. That's why I'm making a video, just so you know. Anyway, the problems I had with this, or things that I've had to update, are a couple of different things. One of the things is behind the down tube. Let's see if we can get back in here with the camera. Behind back in here, you can see there's a back in the back. Oh shoot, hang on a second. There is bellows on that exhaust crossover tube. When we did the rebuild, I was having a little bit of smoke come out right behind the head back on this side when it first started, sometimes in the morning. And I noticed that, and then I realized that tube was leaking exhaust back there. It's one of the things you might want to update on your truck if you have one over the time that you have it. Another thing is if you look here at the turbo, if you notice, mine does not have a flapper. I did the flapper delete kit. A lot of people say that has issues with the cold start. You know, I haven't had any changes in my cold start, but I don't live in a place where it's an issue with cold start. And I replaced the pedestal with the flapper delete. Okay, so that's the turbo pedestal is right there. I'm trying to get my finger in here so you can see. Let me see here, hang on. Turbo pedestal is right there, right below the turbo. That was replaced with the flapper delete kit. Obviously they make that kit for a reason, probably because it works better. What I did notice after I did that is I did have better boost climbing hills. I was able to go another 5 miles an hour most of the time with the weight going uphill, because there's better flow going through the exhaust. That flapper kind of has a restricted flow because there's that flapper there all the time, and you lose some flow from your exhaust from the turbo. That's just normal turbo things from running turbo gas engines. I've known some of these things to old racing stuff we used to do. But having that thing missing did help with low end boost. So I was able to gain boost quicker when I did that, and that was actually kind of a better flow. I thought it was a better design. Some guys will tell you, because, well, they say that is for a cold start. When it's shut, it actually helps the engine start better when it's cold. Like I said, I didn't have any issues with that after, so just my opinion. The other thing I had happen is I was unaware that this problem existed. Usually I try and replace things before things happen, but one of the videos I put up had the whole engine was covered in oil. And on a bucket truck, when it breaks down, it's a very, very expensive tow. So I always seem to try and find out the things in advance and replace them. But on this thing, I was not able to. So I've had very few problems with this truck other than the piston and that one time with that. But I replaced these high pressure lines. They have a braided high pressure line there, and they go out. Just so you know, that's a high pressure oil line. And when it goes, it will just pour oil all over everything. Guys commented that, you wouldn't blow your engine up from doing that. I would be a little bit more cautious than that, and I would just replace them. If you are thinking you're going to wait till it blows up, and you're in the middle of the desert, and your oil line blows up on that, it's not like you can get one of those things at the street corner. You have to order them either from the dealer, and you'll get the stock ones, or you can order them on eBay from a guy who makes them, and he puts the 5,000 pound pressure oil lines on there, and they're pretty much bulletproof at that point. So that's what I did. I went with those. A little bit longer wait, but I think a better repair for the long haul. Of course, when I rebuilt the engine, I went with all, like I said, Mahle engine parts. I went with the Mahle kit, not with the one from Ford. Like I said, it was a Mahle engine kit. I bored it, and we put bigger pistons in it. And I also put a new flywheel in as well when I did that. Brand new flywheel. We didn't go with a rebuilt because it's stick shift, which in my opinion is probably the best combination to have. If you have a 7.3, it's probably the best engine from Ford that was put in the Fords, actually made by Navistar, but and with the stick shift, you eliminate the issues they had with the automatic transmissions. There was a few of them. And I think about 140,000 miles, I had to replace all the injectors right after I got it. It wasn't long after. So people say, well, if you buy the Chevy, you have issues with injectors. No, that Ford didn't last on this truck, didn't last very long either. And it wasn't an issue with the injector leaking. It was actually an issue with the oil side of the injector, not hydraulically. So how the lifters work on that, or I misspoke, not the lifters, I'm saying the injectors. How the injectors work on this is they have an electric solenoid, and it's also assisted with hydraulic from the engine oil. So the heads are pressurized with oil. That's what those pressure lines are for. And what it does is it actually helps to pull the injector to open up for the for that. And what would happen is when it was cold, and this is typical when your injectors start to go bad on the Ford, is you'll notice you'll have cold start issues. So if you're buying a truck and you're looking at one and it has a cold start issue, it won't start when it's cold, and it has good glow plugs, and and the whole system of the glow plugs is working fine, where they're charging and energizing, there's a little solenoid over here for them. So anyway, if all that's working correctly, and you're having cold start issues, more than likely you're having probably an injector problem, and what's happening is they're not able to build up that oil pressure quick enough, because it's leaking off at the injectors. That's a common thing on these. Another problem I've had, basically the biggest problems I've had with this were constant oil leaks. And I'm in the sign business, and I went in the front of a store. I can't have oil leaks. I just didn't like that much. So I constantly was trying to fix them, chase them down. So underneath here, on this side of the engine, there is a oil cooler, and it's like a big tube, and the O-rings on both sides of that typically go bad on those things. So that's one of the things you may have to replace. And you'll just look, and there's a lot of places on YouTube that show you how to repair that and replace those. So that's something you want to keep in mind if you start to have an oil leak on this side of the engine. That's usually it. The other thing that they have is at the turbo pedestal will leak, and it'll leak kind of almost look like it's the rear main seal leaking, but it's actually coming from the valley above and going down. The other thing I saw too, I've seen forums on and stuff like that, is on the back sides of the heads there's plugs. Sometimes those leak oil because it's at the high pressure at the back side of the head on the plugs. I believe it's on both sides of the back side of the head, or maybe it's just on that side, I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've done that, but of course when I rebuilt the engine, we put all those in. I've never had that leak actually. So I figured, well, so you know, basically the engine hasn't been bad, but you know, to me, if it cracked pistons, that's kind of a big fail to me. You know, that's kind of like, you know, if I was buying another truck, if I didn't need a bucket truck, I'd probably try and buy something with a different label on the hood. And a lot of guys aren't going to like that, but that's just the honest truth for me, you know. And I've had a lot of cars. I've had hundreds of them. The least issues I've had were with my Duramax trucks, and I've had a couple of those. And the one that I have now, I'm just going to keep it. I'm not going to buy a brand new truck. The newer ones have a lot more issues. And so let's kind of go over some of the issues with the 6.0 that I've been reading about, and some of my friends have had. And the 6.4, well, when I did the rebuild on this, I went to the rebuild shops, and that guy goes, I was talking to him about the other Ford engines, and they go, oh, the 6.4, and they showed me rods from them. They're might as well use them as paperweights. They're just so small and so thin. They had issues with, you know, the pistons being too thin. They had issues with the turbo. There's just a whole bunch of things with the 6.4 that I would steer clear of. Just, you know, look up 6.4 engine, Powerstroke help guy. You know, he'll pretty much get you steered out of that one. I would not buy anything with the 6.4. But the 6.0 is not bad, okay, if it's bulletproof. But you're talking about, you know, you're going to have to buy it, you know, and you're going to have to do a complete bulletproof on them. So apparently I've never done one, but I've seen some of the issues on them. Just kind of going to go over some of them. I might be right or wrong about some of this stuff, because like I said, I haven't done it personally myself, so I don't know 100% of it. But the guys say to replace the heads, they put in studs instead of bolts on the head. I believe they had TTY bolts, and the TTY bolts would have issues, and the heads could come loose. It was one of the problems with the 6.0. Those are pretty big problems, pretty expensive. You got to pull the cab off to change the heads. It's just easier. And then, you know, they had problems with the oil. Was it I'm trying to remember. Something to do with the valley. I can't remember exactly. You have to pull the intake off, and there's an issue in the valley, and I believe it's like the oil pump, or the something to do with that. I can't remember. But the issue that I remember was really big was the heads, and they had issues with the heads cracking. So you need to replace the heads and put the updated heads on. The Powerstroke help guy, I would just say go to Powerstroke help and look at his videos on that. It would kind of give you a better idea of what you're looking at. But once you've done all of those bulletproofing things to the 6.0, the transmissions on them are pretty good. The engine is pretty strong from there out. And I would say that's probably the second best engine from, you know, the Powerstroke line. The 6.4, you can go to Powerstroke help guy and pretty much you got to steer out of that one. Those are issues. The next one is the 6.7. A lot of guys say, oh, and even the Powerstroke guy says they're a good engine. Okay, so in the early years, if it was like up to I think around 2010, they had issues with the turbo, had ceramic bearings. I mean, who the hell would put ceramic bearings in a turbo? I mean, that to me, if they did that, that just scares me. The whole truck just scares me. I mean, the fact that they would do that just is idiotic, okay? So they put ceramic bearings in the turbo, and the bearings would find their way out, and end up in the engine and crack the pistons. So you see I saw several videos of trucks with cracked pistons, and that was pretty much why, because of that. Because the engine design is now with the exhaust up the middle versus the exhaust going out the sides, there's heat buildup in there. And because you have a parabolic area in the cylinder head, in the area, this is my opinion, I think this is why that they have issues. You have that parabolic area, and all that heat's building up in that part of the engine, and it's like putting a magnifying glass on that part of the engine, and they have problems with the lifters. A lot of guys, this is not something you'll see on a lot of the help videos I've seen. I haven't seen that many on this, but my friend had one of these, and he had problems with, first of all, he had problems with his DPF filter plug. Okay, so the DPF filter system plugs. Now, as soon as that happens, and you do a delete on that engine, you voided all your warranty from the dealer. So a lot of guys say, oh, you just delete it right away. Well, if you do that, you're gonna void your warranty, just so you know. So the thing that I've seen with that, so he had that thing went out first when his whole exhaust system had to be replaced. It was quite a bit of money he spent on that, and then he was calling me about that. And then the next thing he ran into, he was in Texas, and he went to, he had an engine noise, so he pulled into a place. They pulled the rocker arms out, and the rocker arms were all broken, or a bunch of them were broken. And what we started looking into it, found out that what happens is on the 2014 that he had, I don't know what years it was or whatever, but again, like I said, there's select issues, and to me, you know, a lifter issue like this, that's a major problem. That's very expensive. You know, that's something, you know, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 problem that you're gonna have, you know. And I don't know exactly how you have to get them out. You may have to pull the heads, I'm not sure. And it looked like you probably would have to, because there was a very small area to pull them out of. So I don't know if you could get them out without pulling the head, you know, or pulling the the intake system and all that out to get in there. It doesn't look there's very much room. I think it's actually in the head. I think the head goes around all the way down to the block in that area, and there's a very small area to get in there. And if you're not, you know, maybe there's a special tool or something like that that you can pull the lifters out with. I don't know. I haven't done the repair, but I just know about the problem that he had. So I'm just telling you, there's a lot of issues like that. The other that went out, and the lifters collapsed and wiped out the valve train. And you guys will say something like, oh, well, he didn't run very good oil. You know, he ran Royal Purple. So you tell me that it's an oil issue. No. Royal Purple is probably one of the best oils. He's been running that as Duramax now, and has had no issues at all with his truck. If you look at the Powerstroke help guys thing, you know, you'll find out that if you power up a 6.7, it's really not a good idea. There just isn't enough bottom end underneath it. You know, those things just make me just kind of, you know, cringe a little bit, and I kind of go, you know, I just won't buy one myself. If you want to buy one, go ahead, but you'll probably end up with some issues by doing that. So the best trucks I think now probably are the 2017 or newer Duramax is probably pretty good. The issues they had with Duramax, again, I'll tell you what they are. If you want to know, the issues with the early ones was the injectors. Okay, the 2003 up to 2003, 4.5, they had issues with the injectors. You know, and yeah, they're expensive, and yeah, you have to replace them. And it's not that, to me, it's not that big a deal. If that's the only issue I have, I'd rather do that. I've had to replace my injectors on this. They were expensive, and it's a big job to do. Same thing. So on the later models, they had issues with fuel pump, and I believe that the Ford even has this issue as well. They run a very, very high fuel pressure, and what they have a fix for it, though the Duramax has a fix. I don't know if they have one for the Ford. Probably. You can check the Powerstroke help guy. He has a lot of good videos on that stuff. But in the late models, what they have is they have high pressure fuel system. So you're running up to, you know, 25,000 pounds of fuel pressure, and when you have that kind of pressure, you have a lot more problems. And one of the problems that the Duramax has in a select amount of years is a CP4. I believe that all the injection systems in the Duramax, same even the Volkswagens, are actually made by Bosch. Okay, so the Bosch CP4 pump, they came in the Duramax engine, and I believe it was from, I think, 2010 to 2000, when they changed it 2017 to the CP5. I believe those issues are gone. Well, what guys are doing is they put a CP3, which is from an early Duramax diesel, in the later model, and it seems to resolve the problem. There's actually videos on YouTube if you want to look them up on doing a CP4 mod. I'm doing one actually on my Volkswagen. So here's the high pressure fuel system on the Volkswagen. I have an engine I'm replacing on that. I worked on a couple of these. I've got a few years experience of playing with this stuff. So the CP4 pump has a completely different design inside of it. There's YouTube videos where you can look at the CP4 and CP3 pump and compare the two. The design inside of it is completely different. So if you want to buy a Duramax diesel between those years when they started putting the CP4 pump in, I believe it was around 2010 or something like that, to 2017, when they started having those problems with the CP4 pumps go out. And what it does is it puts metal shavings into the system, wipes out all the injectors. I believe the 6.7 has an issue like this as well. I don't know that they have a solve for it. That's one of the issues you need to look at with the other guy. I don't know. I'm not going to buy one. I'm not going to look at them. I'm not even going to go there because of the other issues I've seen with the engine myself. But if you're looking at a Duramax, and you're looking at comparison between the two, this is the thing you want to replace. You get rid of the CP4, you put on a CP3, and pretty much the CP3 is pretty much bulletproof. The way it's designed is more like a connecting rod, okay? And the other one, the CP4, is more like a roller lifter. So it has a lot more contact surface on the connecting rod portion versus the lifter just having that one little thing with 25,000 pounds of pressure. It just doesn't last, and that's what the issue is. And I believe that the late model Fords have the same. Maybe somebody could comment about that if you've worked on one or know about that, or put a link for the video on Powerstroke Help. That might help somebody find if they're looking at that issue. And I believe that the 6.7 has that problem as well, where it puts metal shavings in the engine and makes it so that you have to replace all your injectors. It's very expensive, but I can't verify that because I've never seen it. Again, like I said, I'm not interested in buying one. I'm not interested in looking at them. I believe there's enough issues that I don't want to go there. So yeah, I've seen the comments. Say 7.3s lasted 1 million miles. Great. My experience has not been that, and it's not because I put ether in the motor. It's not because it was blowing black smoke and I kept driving it. It's none of those things. So, I'm not doubting that other guys had it. And I think some of the issues that they had, that they didn't have it on, were IDI motors, where back in the old days, the IDI diesel from Powerstroke, the early Powerstroke, they called them Powerstrokes back then, but they didn't, they really think of a Powerstroke as the direct injected motor. But I think they still call them Powerstrokes back in the old days. My friend had a 91, I think it was, when they first started the 7.3, and we had, I think it's 6.9 liter, if I remember right. The 6.9 liter we had, that thing lasted forever. It just kept running and running, and we never did wear that truck out. I think the body wore out before then, which is pretty bulletproof as well. The old 6.9 or whatever it was, I think 6.7, 6.9 was the early one. And that one was really good, and so was the 7.3, the early 7.3, well, IDI, flat top pistons, and they were just totally bulletproof. The problem is everybody wants to go fast, so they go and buy these newer ones with the direct injection, and there's issues with that. With direct injection, you got jack injectors right on top of the piston. Same thing even with the Duramax. You have issues with the injectors because they're right on top of the piston, and there's just, that's a lot of heat, and the injector cups start to wear out and cause issues, and make it so you got to replace them. That's why you have to replace them on the Chevys, so you have to replace them on the Fords. just the way it is. If you get an IDI, indirect injection, the old style where it had the injector in a little cartridge area off to the side, they lasted a lot longer. They would last quite a bit longer than these, and you rarely ever had to replace injectors on those. Just the only thing that would go out on them is because they had the old injector pumps with all the lines on them. The lines would break sometimes, or the lines would crack. That's some of the things that would happen, or you'd have issues with the pump. Last about 300,000 or 400,000 miles, and they would go out, and you had to replace them. So that's what we were doing on those old ones. So anyway, I hope that helps you guys if you're looking at trucks. I'll talk to you guys in the next video, and please like, share, and subscribe. Hopefully I didn't, and if you want to put those hate comments in there, bring them on, man. Just go write them on. Go for it. Talk to you in the next video. Please like, share, and subscribe.